Class is a blueprint for creating object. An object is an instance of class. We first create a class, then we create a method inside it. Then we come out of the class and create an object with the reference of our class and then call our method using the newly created object. A method is just like a function. The difference between them is that a method is associated with the class while a function is not. Or we can just say that function inside class are referred as methods. To create a class, we use the keyword class followed by the name of the class. For example, class operations. Creating a method is same as creating a function. We write the def keyword followed by our method name. For example, class operations, and the method is def add with the keyword self. We can create our method without the self keyword, but it's a good practice to use it. The self keyword denotes the particular value for a variable inside its method, which I'll be explaining later on. To create an object, we first assign an object name to a class and then call a method using our newly created object. For example, class operations with the method def add with the keyword self and the two variables a equals 20 and b equals 30. Now we print those variables using print a plus b. And then we create an object. Object equals operation, the name of our class, and then we call our method add using object.add keyword. And when we run the program, we get the output 50. Now let's see this in a real program. Let's create a class first, say operations. Then a method name add with the self keyword, and now let's create our object and assign it with class operator. And now let's create a variable or two in association with our object a. a.value 1 equals 10 and a.value 2 equals 20. Now let's print our statement. Addition of self.value 1 and self.value 2 equals to the operation self.value 1 plus self.value 2. Now see, this self keyword gets replaced with our object a and the values will get assigned to it. On running the program, we get the result 30 as expected. The good thing about self keyword is that we have to use it just once, and we can use our method with different values every time or at once. Let's create another object and assign different values to it. Say object b equals to our class operations, and then now we create and assign values to a variable. b.value 1 equals 20 and b.value 2 equals 30. And now we call our method using object b.add. On running the program, we should get the values 30 and 50 as the output. As you can see, the self keyword gets assigned to the values of our assigned objects. Self is really helpful in these cases. Now let's learn about constructors. A constructor is a method which is always called when an object is created. We do not need to call it, it is called on its own whenever an object is created. Constructors are generally used for instantiating an object. The task of constructors is to initialize or assign values to data members of our class when an object of the class is created. In Python, a constructor is created using the init method. For example, the def with the init keyword and with the self, and then the body of the constructor inside it. Now see, there are two types of constructors, default constructors and parameterized constructor. Default constructor is a simple constructor which does not accept any arguments. Its definition has only one argument, which is a reference to the instance being created, and that is self keyword. While on the other hand, parameterized constructor is a constructor with parameters that accept values. It takes its first argument as a reference to the instance being constructed known as self, and then the rest of the arguments are provided by the user. Let's see examples for both. So here we have default constructor, then we create our class person, and now we create our default constructor, which is def init self with the variable self.name td. Whatever variable we are going to create inside the init our constructor, it has to be with the name self.variable name. So here we have self.name equals td. Now a method to print out data members. So let's say print name, def print name self, and now we'll print self.name. Now let's create object of the class. Let's say object now equals person. Now calling the instance method using object.printName. On running the program, we get our output td, which is stored in the variable name self.name. Now let's see an example of parameterized constructor. Here we have a class add and the two variables. The first one is the first name equals Somil and the last name is Tripathi. And now let's create a constructor, the def init, and then we have the self and with parameters first name and last name. We have created the variables we have created earlier. Now let's assign different variables to the variable Now let's assign these variables to our newly created variables. Self.first will be assigned with the first name, and self.last variable will be assigned with the variable last name. Now let's create another method, def add name self. Now we'll print our values of variables self.first and self.last using the f string. Now let's create our object add. Now assign values to it. Team. The first will be the team, and the second is delta. Now let's call our method using object.addName. Now running the program, we get the value or whatever the value we have assigned to it, that is team delta. See here we have assigned the values, the first name as Somil, last name as Tripathi, but it didn't print those values. It printed the value which I have assigned in the when we create our object, that is team and delta. As you can see, the team get assigned to our self.first, or to the team gets assigned to our the variable first name, and the delta gets assigned to the variable last name. Now here we have assigned the values of first name and last name to self.first and self.last, and then we have called in our method self add name as self.first and self.last. On calling our method add name, we get those values printed on the screen as we wanted. This was pretty much all in object and class. The next video will be about data abstraction and encapsulation.